Well, can you also tell me a little bit what for you, how you understand beauty? What is beauty for you?
Yeah, that's many things that most people consider ugly. I can enjoy. I uh, I really when I'm at the dentist and the drill is going, I can enjoy the sounds, and there are many sounds that yeah I can really enjoy any kind of sounds that has some intensity and well not always but so it's really hard to say. I yeah hmm. I had you have you have some pieces of the Kruimakers, you know those pieces. Uh, he's he was a Dutch composer and really very radical artist. And one piece I attended of his was where that consists of 10 ways to destroy a microphone, where you saw that a microphone that it was like a saw was going right through it, but it was all heavy amplified, of course, or a flamethrower towards a microphone on a table and a sledgehammer on it, and so that I really like that. And also he wrote, he made some electronic pieces called canons, which actually only consist of dry pulses in certain rhythms. And I remember I once was asked to make a program for the Deutschlandfunk, and I could choose all kinds of music or to play in for an hour, and I chose one of those pieces. And so the producer told me that before playing those pieces, I should tell people at home, now don't worry that your radio is broken, but this piece is supposed to sound like this.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Well, you studied the International Phonetic Alphabet. Can you please explain your experiences?
Yeah, well, the reason I started to study it was that I wanted to be able to write sound poems that combine the pronunciation of different languages in one text, so I have more colorful texts than texts that use just one pronunciation. And well, as soon as I started, I had learned it, I noticed that many sounds I was making in improvisations were not represented in it, so I started to adding my own symbols to it, and I now call it Blonk's IPA extended. And also then the signs developed into more abstract and not functional anymore way of making scribbles and so that there's still some relation to some letters of the International Phonetic Alphabet, but it's completely free from that, and I use that a lot in my graphic art.
Yeah. And how do you learn other sounds? I read in another interview that you like to learn foreign languages you don't understand really, but you like the sound of the language, like Korean. Do you still have that you learn sounds through listening to different languages?
Yeah, I haven't done that in some time, but I bought language courses to listen to them, and not necessarily to learn the language, but to pick up the sounds, and also from all kinds of singing from other cultures. Yeah, that has been very interesting over the years.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Can you tell me how you compose?
Oh, that goes from very intuitively to really after a lot of research, and I also I quit mathematics sometimes in the late 1970s and have almost not used any mathematics in my music for almost 30 years, but in the year 2006 I took a sabbatical, like a year off, no performances, and I got back into mathematics and learned computer programming languages. So I got into algorithmic composition, making all kinds of systems to generate music, to work with sound, also to generate texts, and also to generate visuals, and I use that a lot now. And I always experienced that people might think, if you have a very rigid or tight structure for a piece, that it would be not lively enough or dead. But I have the experience, whatever the structure is, it's very rigid, I can breathe the life into it on stage or on a recording.
Okay, well, what is the most important for you to have in a composition, maybe even in an improvisation, or maybe not? Is there something that you choose, okay, now it's good, and the other I put in the trash, or how is this working for you?
Well, when I decide that a piece is good enough to be published or something like that, oh yeah, I just listen to it, and actually I would not do like public tryouts like you do with theater pieces, and people comment on it and they improve it or they change it. I've never done that. I always listen only to myself, or I sometimes watch a video of myself and see if a piece is good, or if I should throw it away, or if it needs more work, or if it's already great and you should go on with it. Yeah, that's how I judge it.
Yeah, okay. So do you also have a big trash container with compositions or ideas that will never make the way outside?
Oh yeah, my computer is full of it. I was working on this, a number of pieces which I performed for the first time almost a year ago, and for a work for 4 horn players and computer and voice. And I worked on that for a long time, and we ended up playing less than 1/10 of the pieces I had developed. Of course, they are all not quite ready arranged for the ensemble, but I had to make choices from a large amount of material, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff that will never see the public or
The
hear.
world. Yeah, okay. Well, can you tell me how you understand sounds? What are sounds? And do you also have an idea that sounds could be kind of architecture, like space? And that brings me also back to Schwitters with his Märzbau.
Mm-hmm.
But how is that for you? What is a sound? Can you tell me what this is?
Well, sounds in connection to space, I find that interesting. Even as a simple vocal performer, when I perform in a certain space, I look at it and see what can I do, and not just stay in one spot, but use the space and send sound from different places in the space. And yeah, what is a sound that some questions are maybe too general to answer.
But well, you are a sound artist. I mean, you should have an idea about what this is, what you make, and what you offer to the world.
Yeah.
Is it space, air, or something
I
like
hope
that?
it is in some way interesting, and of course it's not only sound. Some things I do use semantic meaning, and then destroy it or change it, and so well, when I perform, I'm very conscious that it's a time-based art, and many poets who read their work do not have that, are not so much aware of it, so they tend to be boring after 5 minutes. They have no idea that it's on stage. It should be a time-based art. But so I've been always, I try to be very aware of that, and but it can be very different. I also have my personal version of John Cage's 433, so that's an extreme, but I still, and people really appreciate my versions.
Okay. Well, next question is about improvisation. Can you tell me, do you organize something in an improvisation, or is it pure born in the moment what you do?
It's I try to be, when I improvise, also to be aware of the structure of an improvisation. Of course, it's very different if you improvise with other people or alone. When I'm doing a solo improvisation, I do sometimes completely improvised pieces of, could be half an hour or so. Then I go through different moods, also different degrees of spontaneity. Sometimes I will be very intuitive, but then I have, for instance, I can go to in a section where okay, now I make phrases of only 4 sounds or syllables, and go like that for a while. So and I do that for a little while, and then I'm in a different world, and I can go completely intuitive again, something like that.
Yeah.
That's one example. Or I think of a certain sound. For now, I will be like in some machine or so, and then I go through that and I get somewhere else again, and I just leave the image.
Yeah. But you just mentioned that you are somehow, when you improvise or when you perform, in a different world. Can you tell me a little bit about these worlds you enter? Where are you then?
I had that much more in the past than now. It has, for instance, when I first started performing the Schwitter's O-Sonate, I had vivid images of a different situation. I was in with a certain section of the piece. I was this and that and so, but that has gradually disappeared. Like when I perform now, it's more of the utmost concentration on the sound, and also in the past I have worked with several theater directors and who wanted me to do certain actions or certain gestures to support the story, but I've felt that that was not the way I wanted to work. I now, when I perform, I tend to use only those facial expressions, gestures that either are necessary to make the sound or that come naturally with the sound, and not anything else. So to take away all the not essential, you know.
Can you tell me a little bit about the experience you have with today's music industry? Just to have, you have videos like you also have. You have the LPs like vinyl, you have CD, you have streaming, you have downloads, you have concerts, and you also have teachings. How do you find your way still in this big business?
Oh, it's gotten more difficult over the years now. I just now barely manage to still make a living on all that together. Of course, yeah, it's more difficult to sell CDs. Everybody knows that, and but still, I'm very grateful that I was able to make a living on my art since I was 40. Before that, I started my late 20s, I had about 10 years of sort of fighting for it and having odd jobs and being on social security for a while or unemployment and then something else again. But when I was 40, I've been able to make a living on it, and so feeling very privileged to make a living with things I like to do. So many not having to do any things I really did not like. So I'm very grateful for that. And but at the same time, it's almost getting impossible now. So I'm I'm happy I'm close in age to getting the state pension.
Okay. Well, you also teach and you also give workshops. Do you also teach kind of a vocal technique?
Well, I don't know. I never teached on. I've never taught on a regular basis. It's just workshops, and yeah, some people have come to me for individual sessions, but mostly I just give them a lot of different ideas, and some people have come over from United States, Canada, and they have a few sessions with me of 2 or 3 times 3 hours or so, and then I have a lot of material that I can work with for years, and it's I don't see it would be possible to work in a standard way for me on vocal techniques, and because it's also very individual, and people can only work on sounds that they really like to make. You know, if you have some very standard way of singing like a bel canto or some form of jazz singing, you can work on it and have a lesson every week and make progress. But with this kind of work, it's so individual, and there are sounds that I make that other people would not want to make or will not be able to make, and everyone have to develop it for him or herself.
Yeah. Can you tell me what you really like about teaching or giving workshops?
Well, what I like most about it is that people are very happy. Mostly when I'm not especially attracted to it. I have never aspired to having a regular teaching job. So I think I would have difficulty with that. And but just now and then a workshop it's a teaching workshop is a big effort for me, much more so than a performance. But when I see that people come out of it happy and I can give them a lot of stuff, so that makes it worth it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can you tell me, did your voice change the last years, the last 30 years through your work?
Yeah, it's generally gotten a bit lower. I cannot reach the high falsetto notes that, for instance, on the old recording of Ursonate in the Largo, it's really high, and I cannot reach that pitch anymore. But other things come back, and there are other sounds that I can make now that I never. For instance, the uvular trill. It gets slower over the years. I started like that, but every year it still gets a little slower. That's mysterious.
It's beautiful, yeah. And do you rehearse a lot?
Not so much. Mostly when I'm working on learning a new piece, and then sometimes I still work on specific sounds and to make them better, or to go into some new territory, but not as much as it was like 20 years ago. So.
Yeah.
Well, with other people, and of course, I rehearse to realize pieces and so.
Yeah. Well, you also perform with electronic instruments. Why is this important for you? Why do you like to do that?
Well, people know me mostly as a vocal performer, but composition came before that. I started composing music, at first of course simple pieces, in about 1977, and then the vocal improvisation didn't come until like 1984. I've always been thinking as a composer, and so as a composer you use any material that you think is useful for a piece and is attractive. And so as a composer I tend to use all kinds of means that are available to me. And now electronic sounds are the most available. If you want to work with instrumentalists, you have to organize a lot, and well, of course I still try to do it, but it's takes much more effort, and you have to get funding and everything. So I work a lot with electronics, and for improvisation I found it a really nice counterpart to my voice, that I can fight against the electronics, or it will support me, or it will alternate, yeah, so I find that very interesting.
Yeah. Do you also create your own sound samples? And
Yeah.
how
Sure.
do you do that?
Yeah. Well, it started with mostly voice samples, but then I got more into electronic sound synthesis, and I made a lot of samples that I now use and from things I do on the computer, but also I have a number of obscure analog synthesizers that make unpredictable sounds, chaotic synthesizers, and so I record those and then work with those sounds as well.
Okay. And how do you choose the samples? For sure, you also have a big trash box of samples you don't use.
Yeah.
But how do you choose those ones that are really terrific for you?
It depends on what piece I'm working on. I just recently made an hour of music for a cassette that will be put out by a label in the Bay Area in Richmond, California, which I was actually doing archiving on my computer, and going back all the way gradually and looking for on my computer for over several months what have I created on the 13th of October of 2012, then the 12th of October, the 11th. So I found hundreds of things that I didn't remember at all, and I called this tape that will come out Joyous Junctures, because it's an ongoing piece of half an hour on each side with the cassette, and there are old things even as early as 2007 that exactly fit there and were like happy findings, and so that's why it's called Joyous Juncture. There's new things that I just recorded last month with very old things combined.
Okay, well, I have another question related to a live performance. How do you have a contact with the audience? Do you also work with their noises maybe, or with the space? You also mentioned that you work with the space. What's going on in you when you perform for people?
Yeah, sometimes it happens that there's some noise, like even like yesterday or the day before. While I was performing in this cafe, somebody dropped a glass, which came in a very nice, with very nice timing with what I was doing. So I built forward on that, and sometimes people bring dogs, and or there are sounds, traffic sounds from outside or whatever. I also once performed the Ursonate in a festival in a tent where there was a thunderstorm coming, and with a lot the rain on the tent, and this was really great to perform with lightning and thunder, and so
Okay. Well, I really had to think about the next question that came just up in me in the beginning when I thought I will have a talk with you. Do you sometimes also perform in private, maybe without even knowing that you do that, maybe during shopping or maybe while you wait on the airport, maybe? Do you have stories you remember? Can you tell me a little bit about
I
that?
will sometimes sing for myself, yeah, or make sounds, and uh, yeah, I when I have to wait somewhere, well, I got into the habit a few years ago of learning all jazz songs. So then I will softly sing to myself some old jazz standards or so. Yeah.
Yeah, but you never had an experience that you went shopping maybe in the supermarket, you started to to hum something and people
So
reacted maybe.
not unintentionally. You mean? I think it may have happened, but yeah, that it has happened. Yeah, but not in such a loud way that it would disturb the whole circumstances or so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, can you tell me who you are in private when there are no sounds, no music, no business around? How is your private life, if you want to share that, of course?
Well, I've been always been a shy boy, and many people have told me that how radically I transform when I'm on stage, and that they when they haven't never seen me perform, they could never have imagined that I could change into that person on stage. So there's a big difference. I was always a very shy boy when I was young, and still. When I'm in a group of people and I have to speak about myself, I find that really difficult.
Okay. And last question is, how do you like and understand life in general?
Oh yeah, well, of course, just like everybody, I don't always like the way life goes. But in general, I'm happy, as I already told, that I get through life without having to do things I really dislike. So yeah, I sometimes wonder. I've never had children, so and I think there were moments that I wanted children, but I didn't find the right woman, and then. I didn't want children, and I was with a woman who actually wanted, but then it didn't work out. So I sometimes wonder what would it have been like to have children, but I won't know it anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah. And something else that comes up about life and what you like about it, how you understand.
Well, I hope I will have some more time of living because I have a lot of things in my head that I still would want to do and to develop, and yeah.
Well, I think just in general you have a very great talent to experience a lot of energy that is present at life, and especially in your life, which is a beautiful and big gift you give to us as a performer and as a human being.
Mm. Yeah, I hope I can still do it for a long time. I hope.
Okay.
Maybe I can sing my new song as it is called Retirement Overdue. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know how to go on. I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know what's more to do. Please, please, no longer. Please, please, no longer. Retirement overdue. Retirement overdue. Over my dead body.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Great.
Yeah, makes sense, I think.
Perfect.